meetups with our favorite mixologists from around the country. And we're thrilled to have Naomi Leslie here with us from Balvenie. I think one of my personal discoveries came out during quarantine that I love Scotch. I love it. I don't know why I haven't been drinking it more often, but I definitely have enjoyed it over the last few months more than ever. And I'm excited not only to taste it with her today, but also to learn how to make cocktails with it, which I haven't really done yet. So this is great. And for those of you that don't know Mariano's, as I know, Tim, you're from Seattle, but we're an amazing grocery store in the Midwest. And we love, working with mixologists and our local partners and doing a lot of fun things. So I'm gonna let Naomi take it away because I know she has two great recipes to show us tonight. And I can't wait to taste them, so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for having me. Honestly, I'm thrilled to be here. And I was saying earlier before everyone hopped on that the Balvenie isn't always seen as a cocktail whiskey, which can be a good thing because it's amazing on its own, absolutely. But it also can be really incredible in cocktails. And sometimes people don't really know that or don't know how to approach it. And before I had this role, I was really deep into the cocktail world in New York City. That was my whole life. And the Balvenie was my favorite whiskey. And I was super thrilled to have this job. But the one thing was I really didn't get to do many cocktails. And so it's always such a treat to be able to show how incredible this whiskey is in cocktails. So I was bartending at this amazing bar called Blacktail, which is a rum bar. And I started to get pretty nerdy about spirits and, really deep diving into the rum world. And through that, we had the Caribbean cask Balvenie here, this 14-year, which is aged in rum casks. And that was the first time I tried the Balvenie was with that whiskey. And it really was, one, just astonishingly good. And two, was incredibly handcrafted. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized what a, rare and unique whiskey it was. So we're owned by William Grant & Sons, which is still family owned, which is essentially unheard of in the whiskey world. And so we're 5th generation Scottish family. The Grants still own it. It's absolutely incredible. They're an incredible crew. They're super involved, super passionate, and they give us a lot of freedom and a lot of, responsibility to really hold to those handcrafted traditions, especially in a world where I think the phrase handcrafted is pretty abused and overused. I saw a McDonald's billboard with the word handcrafted on it recently. It just showed, how important it is to really showcase products that actually take that seriously. And so we still grow and malt our own barley on site. We have our own cooperage where we build and repair barrels just for us on site, which is, again, almost unheard of in the whiskey world. We build our copper pot stills by hand. I mean, all of these things we take so seriously. It's actually like stepping back in time when you go there, which I know is the absolute cheesiest way to describe it, but it's genuinely true. And I haven't found a better way to describe it since going there a couple of times now. So anyway, the whiskey is incredible. And while it's absolutely gorgeous on its own, for example, this first cocktail, lights a little bright. First cocktail is going to use this Doublewood 12. It's kind of the heart and soul of our line. It's incredible on its own for sure, but it also can be really lovely in a drink as long as you respect the spirit as you're putting it in the drink, right? And so the Doublewood 12 that's going into our first cocktail, which is the Penicillin, the Doublewood 12 is aged for 12 full years in ex-bourbon barrels, American oak. So from that, you're going to get that vanilla, caramel, honey, all of those lovely flavors. And then it gets moved into a second cask for a couple extra months, which is a European oak sherry barrel. And so from those, you're going to get much more of that rich, nutty, savory side. So those things coming together make a stunning whiskey on its own. And also, because, of that age and because of that kind of hefty European oak background, it really can hold up in a cocktail and stand out, which is amazing. So that's kind of a little introduction to the brand. At the end, we'll do some Q&A. So please ask any questions you want. Even during, feel free to throw them in the chat or, unmute and ask. I'm a very casual person and I would love to hear any and all questions you have. So with that, I'll go into our first cocktail, which is the Penicillin. I miss New York desperately. I usually am based there and I've been a little bit out of town for crazy quarantine time. And the Penicillin is a modern classic by the amazing New York City bartender, Sammy Ross of Milk and Honey and Attaboy. So I think when I was asked to make some cocktails for this, I just immediately jumped to that one because I've been missing it so much and missing New York so much. So, so anyway, I will hop into that. So for the penicillin, we are going to start with 1 ounce of lemon juice. If you have fresh, that's always the best if you can get some lemons and juice them yourself. If not, obviously there are a million options. Frozen lemon juice, you can do store bottled, anything that really works. I know times are a little bit crazy right now and getting to the grocery store is a little bit more difficult than usual. So whatever works, we're gonna make it work. But this is fresh lemon juice. You're gonna do 1 ounce of that, or 1 part of that. And then you're going to do a little 3/4 ounce split of 2 things. One is honey syrup, which is essentially just 3 parts honey to 1 part water. Even if you don't feel like doing that, honey on its own still kind of works. It'll just be a little bit sweeter. So you're going to do 3/4 split of that. And the other part of the 3/4 ounces is going to be ginger syrup. So ginger syrup, essentially, you can do this a couple of ways. One, you can infuse regular simple syrup with ginger. You can actually juice the ginger yourself if you have access to a juicer and mix that with sugar. There are also bottled ginger options in grocery stores. Again, like lots of options to make kind of your own version of that. I saw in the chat too, can you freeze fresh lemon lime juice for later use? Yes, 1000%. I actually had a series at the start of this home time where called Use What You've Got Cocktails on my Instagram. I'll put my Instagram in the chat after if you guys want to follow. I do a lot of cocktails. But the whole concept with Use What You Got was how to make at-home drinks when it's a little bit harder right now to get out there and, you know, get the ingredients you need. And a huge part of what I talked about was if you juice a lot of lime or a lot of lemon, if you have some fresh, it freezes extremely well. So yes, 1000% you can do that. So the rest of the 3/4 split here with the ginger syrup, add a little bit of spice. Absolutely delicious. And then for the base whiskey in this, I'm going to use this Doublewood 12. So essentially, our main spirits aren't really peated. There's only going to be a hint of smoke, very little smoke. If you think of Scotch traditionally as extremely smoky, this is not that. It only has a little bit of peat. There's going to be a hint, nothing more. And so for the base of the penicillin, you're going to want your whiskey to not be super peaty. And the reason is at the end, we're going to top it with a little bit of a very peaty whiskey or smoky whiskey. So you're going to want 2 ounces of this Balvenie 12 Doublewood, which is kind of the heart and soul of our line. Like I said, you can definitely find it at Mariano's as the base spirit here. So 2 ounces there. So you're going to grab your ice cube. And for shaking time, I always say it depends on the ice. If you're using regular kitchen ice, shake it a little bit shorter because you don't want it to get too watery. If you have some larger ice cubes, like I have these kind of freezer ones here, you can shake it a little bit longer to get a little bit of an extra froth, but make sure you don't overshake it. Our penicillin, we're going to want nice rocks glass. This is a Cocktail Kingdom glass here, an amazing company who sells glassware and bar tools. An ice cube in there. And now you're going to want to shake for a couple of seconds. So if anyone's at home making this, give it your all. You've earned it. All right. You're going to strain this right into your rocks glass. Lemon, honey, ginger, and whiskey, already amazing. And then for a little extra fun, and this is really what makes it distinctly the penicillin, is you're going to want to top it with a peated whiskey. So this is the Balvenie Week of Peats. The Balvenie 12 Doublewood is an awesome kind of intro whiskey to our line, but if you want to explore a little bit more, our 14-year Week of Peats. And this is our one whiskey in our whole line that we put a lot of smoke into, a lot of peat into. So the whole thing with this cocktail, the penicillin, is that you want to top it with a little bit of a very smoky whiskey. So for people too who might be a bit timid about peated whiskeys or a little bit nervous about, you know, the kind of smokier side of the whiskey world, this is a great cocktail to try it in because it's just a hint on the top, kind of ease your way in. It's almost like the gateway into into smoky whiskeys. So what I did, one can just pour a little bit on top, about a 1/4 ounce approximately, or what I did kind of for fun is if you want to get a little bit of an atomizer at home, you can top it like that, spray in, and then, you know, you can test it too. Quality control. So that's your little bit of peated whiskey in here. And that is your Balvenie Penicillin. So that's our first cocktail. I hope everyone has at least a dram in front of them. Are there any questions before I do the second cocktail? Yes, cheers. Any questions or thoughts or really anything at all about the first cocktail?
One comment and two questions. Adding like a touch of like that peaty flavor really does make such a difference. I mean, it's really, I've never had a penicillin. This is the first time.
Oh,
so
amazing.
Penicillin, like traditionally, does it have the honey and the ginger in it? Is that what makes it a penicillin?
Yes. So this is a totally traditional penicillin. The lemon, the honey, and the ginger topped with the whiskey, and then a little bit of peat at the end.
I had honey syrup. I didn't do the ginger. So next time I'm going to make sure that I have some, because I think that flavor combination would just, I missed out on the ginger part. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's delicious.
Good. I'm so glad. I know. Absolutely amazing. I was missing it when I logged on and you guys already had a whiskey in front of you. I was like, I am so jealous and behind.
And it's Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday. Love that.
Absolutely. So what was the peated whiskey? You said it was the wheat of peat. Was that the Balvenie label?
Week of peat. Yep. And so essentially it's called the week of peat because it's 1 week a year that we do this really peated whiskey. Essentially the peat comes in at the kilning stage of whiskey, which is when you put your barley over a screen with a fire underneath. So if you don't want that smoke flavor, you use anthracite, which is essentially a smokeless heat. So it, toasts the barley without actually adding that smoke flavor. But if you want that smoke flavor, you use peat. And so peat really, in case anyone doesn't know, it comes from the ground. It's essentially almost like a fossil fuel where it's made of what decomposes into it. And so it's this very earth forward, really intense smoke. And you dig it out of the ground in bricks and use it in your kiln. So the reason it's called Week of Peat is because we do it 1 week a year right before the deep clean of the distillery, because peat is amazing, but it makes a mess. So that's kind of our way to use a peated whiskey without messing up the usual flow of our spirit stills. So.
Love it.
So how does that compare to the one that I have? I don't have a lot of peated just because I'm still kind of building up to that, but I have a Laphroaig quarter cask, which is really strong, right? And I have an Ardbeg, which is really strong. So how is that one in comparison to that with the peat smoke?
So first of all, quarter cask is one of my favorites. Absolutely delicious. Lovely one. So essentially the huge difference is that the peat we use is from inland in Speyside where we are. So it's a very, very different peat from those Islay whiskeys, which are right by the ocean. So essentially it's not a good, bad thing. It's just a very different flavor profile. So I almost always have some Lagavulin at home. I really love it when I'm in the mood for that super intense Islay peated whiskey. But like I said, peat's made of what decomposes into it. So for those Islay whiskeys by the ocean, what decomposes into it is, seaweed, saline, brininess, iodine, all of those super, super intense things. And that's what makes those Islay whiskeys so unique. On the flip side, for us, our peat we take is from by us in Speyside inland. And so it's much earthier, much softer. It's really actually a fascinating whiskey, and I love to taste this with not only people who are used to drinking peated whiskey, but people who aren't used to it, because the people who aren't used to drinking peated whiskey, because it's a little bit softer and not quite as intense, it can help ease them into the category. But at the same time, people who are used to drinking peated whiskey like yourself, it can be a really cool look at kind of terroir in whiskey. That where you make it really matters. And our peat that we use is right by us, and it really is a very, very different flavor profile than those seaside ones.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Any other thoughts, questions?
I think I found my new favorite cocktail, and I'm being really like a sour, but not as intense. I'm really excited to do it the right way and add ginger into it, but it has a good layers of flavor.
1,000%. It's one of my absolute go-tos at bars. Really, truly a treat. And when the world goes back to normal, anyone who can get back to New York City and order one of these at Attaboy, which is where it was created by Sammy Ross, a pretty iconic spot, do so. It's very, very good. So
We'll add it to our list for sure.
All right, so I'll go on to the second cocktail just for fun. And again, if you think of another question about this and want to come back to it, again, I'm very casual. Ask me whatever you would like. So this next cocktail, just get my tools ready. My next cocktail is the Caribbean Cask Daiquiri. So I'm sure many of you, as I did when I was first, really learning about this world, when you hear the phrase daiquiri, think of a viciously sweet, artificial flavored, neon colored thing in a slushy machine. So yes, this is a modern version of some of the daiquiri, but the original daiquiri, the traditional one, was actually really came about via ships because, men had rum on these ships, but the rum at the time was very crude, did not taste very well. So they ended up adding sugar to the rum. And then additionally to that, they also wanted to avoid some illnesses. So they needed fresh citrus. So they added lime. And so people started drinking rum, lime, sugar. And this turned into what became the daiquiri. In fact, if any of you make this at home tonight, please, I'm trying to get this hashtag going because my colleague thought of it and I think it is so funny. Hashtag Pirates of the Caribbean Cask. Because our 14-year here is aged in rum barrels. It's a single malt Scotch aged in rum barrels called Caribbean Cask. So if you make Caribbean Cask Daiquiri, use the hashtag Pirates of the Caribbean Cask because I want this to become a thing. Anyway, so the daiquiri in its truest sense is genuinely fresh lime, sugar, rum. And so if you take out all that other crazy stuff, it's an amazing cocktail. And so for this one, essentially, it's a little bit of a riff on that where we use a single malt Scotch that's aged in rum casks. So this Caribbean Cask, if any of you have not tried this, is taking America by storm. Absolutely out of hand how popular this Caribbean Cask is. Like, we're trying to keep up with how popular this Caribbean Cask is. It's absolutely a treat. And I think the reason it's doing extremely, extremely well is because when it's finished in these barrels that used to hold Caribbean rum, it gives it this little bit of vanilla sweetness that can help draw in people who might be timid about the Scotch category. So it kind of brings in those newer drinkers as well. But on the same kind of flip side, it also, the rum that we blend, that we season these casks with, we actually blend the rum ourselves, is extremely savory, extremely funky, overproof, super hefty, like really, really intense rum. So it also has this really complex savory side. And so that helps draw in the connoisseurs who really are very used to whiskey. So that's why I think this is doing so astonishingly well, because it can hit like every corner of the market, whether you're new to it, whether you're, a whiskey expert who wants to try something that's a little bit different. It's really quite a special one. I saw as the spirit aged all 14 in rum barrels or finished. It is finished. So it's 14 years fully. It's actually closer to 15 years as a spirit. So the first full 14 are in ex-bourbon barrels, that American oak. And then the finish is for usually between 6 and 9 months in the Caribbean rum casks. So last time I was in Scotland, actually, I was with our malt master, David Stewart, who's amazing. I was with him in his tasting lab, and we had a group of samples from casks of the Caribbean cask that were at about 7 months of finishing. And it was very cool because every barrel is a little bit different, right? It's a wood, it's a natural process. So even if you have the same type of barrel with the same spirit in it for the same amount of time, they're all going to be a little bit different. And so we had all these Caribbean cask finishes in at 7 months in the casks. And it was fascinating. We went barrel by barrel by barrel, and some were done and some were not. And it was super fascinating to watch. So it's actually total closer to 15 years. But so that's the finish. Awesome. Any other questions on this or thoughts on this before I jump into our cocktail? Awesome. Okay. So Caribbean Cask Daiquiri. So essentially, like I said, I came from a rum bar, so this cocktail holds a special place in my heart. So for this one, you're going to want a full ounce of lime juice. Again, fresh if you can, frozen if you have to, whatever you can to make it work during this crazy time. But an ounce of lime juice. And then you're going to use 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. So that is extremely easy to either buy. A lot of liquor stores have simple syrups by the bottle. If not, it's very, very easy to make, equal parts sugar and water until the sugar dissolves. So super easy. So you're going to do 3/4 of an ounce of that. And then 2 ounces of our 14-year Caribbean cask. So You're going to have that single malt base with a little bit of a touch of rum. So it's really a very, very fun cocktail. Awesome. For this glassware, a coupe will do, a little rocks glass will do, anything, you know, anything works. You're going to grab your ice for your shaker. This one you probably don't want ice in the glass. It's not the end of the world. If you want it to be a little bit less intense, you can put ice in your glass, but I like the daiquiri kind of on its own. So again, depending on the ice you have, watch your shake time so that it doesn't become too watery. All right, so I'm gonna strain that in.
I always joke the only exercise I get is when we do the cocktail shaking.
Oh my gosh, I miss the arms I had when I was still bartending all the time. It was like free workouts without a gym. It was amazing. So that was our Caribbean Cask daiquiri here. So cheers for anyone who has the gym. Ah, yes, got some daiquiris, awesome. Oh,
mine's perfect.
It's so good. It's so simple and it's so good. And to me, it's the perfect example of, you know, sometimes people see using a really nice whiskey in a cocktail as kind of blasphemous. You know, people get a little upset sometimes, genuinely. Stay with the internet, it's terrifying. But the thing is, it's not about if you should use it in a cocktail or not. It's about using it in the right cocktail where you can really taste the spirit fully, honor it, make sure it's seen in a really good light. It's a way to see the spirit in a new way, you know? Can you recommend a garnish for presentation and taste? Yeah, absolutely. You can do a lime wheel. Sometimes I do a lime twist. Anything like that on the daiquiri is good. I had someone once, I just thought it kind of blew my mind. Someone put a little sprinkle of cinnamon on top. And I tried it after they told me, and it was absolutely delicious. So something like that can work. Feel free to be creative, especially with home bartending. My gosh, feel free to play around with that. You know, once in a while, I'll sprinkle some chili powder on top of a cocktail just for fun. Tons and tons of opportunities there for sure. And when you're at home, that's really, you know, a time to play around. So enjoy.
We'd have a lot of these and just stay home and we'd all be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, 1000%. Absolutely. 1-to-1 simple syrup. Yeah, so I usually use 1-to-1 on this to kind of lower the sweetness a little bit. But if you want it to be a little bit of a richer, sweeter cocktail, absolutely you can use 2-to-1. For this simple syrup, I used regular kind of like white sugar, but if you want to use like a demerara or a cane sugar, you also can kind of oomph the sweetness there, the richness there. So that's really to taste for sure. All of these recipes are, you know, I'm sure all of you got that little write up with the recipes. All of these are flexible. Like if you want it a little bit more sour, a little bit more sweet, a little bit stronger, anything like that, you can absolutely play around. So that's the joy of making the cocktail yourself. So.
I think I love that, you know, especially for the daiquiri, replacing the rum with the scotch. I mean, I think it's fun to play with the base spirit a little bit. Yeah, it's just really fun to do that, to experiment and try different stuff.
Yeah, this is a really fun one. When I actually kind of discovered this for the first time when I was still working at Blacktail, but had given my notice, and they knew that I was going to go. So I was at a rum bar, and they knew I was going to go work for a whiskey company, and they started messing around with this cocktail kind of as my like happy goodbye gift. And we drank these a couple times as I was heading out of there. So it's like the perfect bringing together of the rum and whiskey worlds for sure.
I know those other two scotches sound great. I only have the 12-year, but I'm excited to try the other two. So I'm going to definitely run out and get those ASAP.
Yeah, they're really a treat. I mean, one thing that I love about the Balvenie's core line is that they all have that, you know, kind of honeyed, rich Balvenie base, but they all have these nuances that make them quite unique. So people love to ask me what my favorite Balvenie is, which is one, it's like choosing your favorite child. That's super hard. But also it's, to me, totally depends on my mood, you know, like it totally depends on the situation, what I'm eating, what I'm feeling, all of those things. And having such a super varied core range is such a treat, because there's almost always something that's going to, you know, appease that.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions about, for Naomi at all, about the drinks or the scotch?
Yeah, honestly, anything. So please feel free. And then,
oh, actually, one question. I always have, so my favorite cocktail actually of all time is the Hemingway Daiquiri.
Oh, so a little maraschino there, yeah.
I love that. I can't serve them to my husband anymore because the one time I did for New Year's Eve, he fell asleep at 8 o'clock. But could you make a version of that with the Scotch and add maraschino to this?
Yeah, I would say probably for that one to use the Doublewood 12. I think it's because that one with the grapefruit and the maraschino has quite a lot going on. So I think for the whiskey to kind of be able to hold up and all of that, definitely the Doublewood 12 would be great.
Well, I should say the Hemingway Daiquiri is not my third favorite cocktail because I love these other two. So.
Oh, good. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say too, I'll put my Instagram in the chat for anyone watching. If you have any questions that you think of later, I always check my messages on there and everything. So feel free to message me with any questions or follow-ups. If you make a Caribbean Cask Daiquiri, use that hashtag because it will make me very happy.
I will do it. And we forgot to tell everyone the best part of your situation is that, especially with the Pirates tie-in, she's actually on a sailboat. In case you didn't notice her surroundings, but she's on a boat. Because I was like, oh, that room you're in looks really small.
Yes, I know. It's yeah. So I'm usually in New York City, but when the situation there in March started getting a little bit dodgy, I decided to escape for a little bit. My family has a sailboat in Boston, so I have been on a sailboat for a couple months now, going back to New York next week, so yay. But it also has been extremely fun to make drinks with the Caribbean Cask, and the daiquiri has, it's felt extremely appropriate on the sailboat for sure.
That's cool. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone being here, and it's been this has been super fun for me, just loving Scotch and loving to learn more. And these cocktails are awesome, Naomi. So we can't wait to have you back another time to teach us more stuff online. Or if you're ever in Chicago, we'll have you in person.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys so much, honestly. And I've gotten to go to Chicago a couple times for work, and I can't wait until I can travel again and get back out
We'll
there.
make sure that we get to meet you.
Yes.
And Tim, we need to learn, you need to have your own Zoom class, maybe. We'll just go through every single thing behind you. I mean, I'm just
that sounds perfect.
The Amarino cherries at the bottom. I love those.
Awesome.
That's great. I saw Naomi on the making a double that you did with Dead Rabbit, and that was when I got the Balvenie 14 for the first time, and yes, it's moving quickly. So thank you so much.
That's awesome. I know actually the bartender, so this is a virtual cocktail kind of happy hour I did with the head bartenders of the Dead Rabbit in New York. So I sent them some bottles of Balvenie and other William Garrett products to make cocktails with. And Tim, the head bartender, Ian, he actually messaged me about a week beforehand, and he's like, I had to have my girlfriend take the Caribbean Cask away from me because I need it for the event, and I've been moving through it. He was like, I'm gonna run out before the event happens. So yeah, absolutely a treat. Oh, that's great you were on there. Thank you for doing this as well.
That's awesome. And AZ, thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you, Jack, for wishing us a happy anniversary. We have a lot of fun activities planned. For those of you that actually live in Illinois, we have a local market starting tomorrow. Sarah and I literally have 13 tents that we set up in the parking lot. We're gonna have live music and local vendors from the Chicagoland area and some community partners. So it's very safely socially distanced, and we have lots of sanitizer. So we'd love to have you join us. It's from 12 to 4 Friday and Saturday, and we'll be there pretty much the whole time, Sarah and I. So if you're in town, come visit. It's at our Bronzeville store. And we have lots of other classes online and other fun things, and we'll visit Naomi another time. But hopefully, everyone to stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it.